to another episode of Live in the Vision. I'm your host, Chris Jacobson, and joining me in the studio tonight is Todd Lorensen, the head men's basketball coach at Mount Marty. Thank you, Todd, for being with me.
Yeah, Chris, appreciate you having me. Looking forward to chatting with you.
For sure. So, for everybody who doesn't know, take us through a little bit about your background. How did you come to be the coach at Mount Marty?
Yeah, been a lot of years and layers that go into that. But I grew up in a coaching household. Father was a high school teacher and coach, so kind of was around the game and developed that passion and spark and competitive nature, and played at the collegiate level. And then from there, went from playing at Grandview University to being an assistant at Grandview University, and then I had an opportunity to go to University of Nebraska Omaha, which at the time was NCAA Division II. It was after the North Central days, so here locally a lot of people would be familiar with the old NCC. They had transitioned to the MIAA when the NCC disbanded, and right as I was leaving when they went to Division I, but then spent 2 years at Truman State University. Our head coach there was Matt Woodley, who is the son of our new football coach here at Mount Marty, Mike Woodley, so some small world connections there.
Yeah, small world after all.
For sure, and then just kept transitioning to different opportunities, and eventually I got the opportunity to come here to Mount Marty and lead the program.
Sure, that's great. So, so you've been a head coach in your previous couple of roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me about maybe some of the successes you had at those prior schools.
Yeah, so Southwestern Community College, which was a spot we didn't necessarily reference there, I was the head men's basketball coach and athletic director for 4 years, and really enjoyed my time there. Obviously, when you have the success that we did, that can make you enjoy your experience a little bit more. But we had a great run. We were fortunate as a program to take over an area that had been struggling, and within our second year, we'd gone from worst in the league to tops in the league, winning a conference championship, and obviously that was a successful moment. But then in year 3 was when we took our big jump to win a national championship at a 36-1 record. Our only loss was on the road to a top 10 team at the buzzer. So we were just a really consistent team, which was a great experience. Yeah.
So let's rewind a little bit. I appreciate you talking about the struggles, because I want to kind of highlight the progression, if you will. So take me through your last in the conference the first year, to winning the conference, to then a national title. Like, talk about that, the struggles or the failures, if you want to call them that, that kind of taught you and you progressed through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually my first head coaching position was at Iowa Wesleyan College. And they were in the transition from an NEI program like Mount Marty is to an NCAA Division III program, which is a major change.
Sure.
And we were not very good. We were 6-19. I was 27 years old, if I can good at math. And there were moments where I was questioning, like, A, am I cut out for this? B, do I have any idea what I'm doing? And C, am I ever going to win another basketball game? And then there were some weird things. Institutionally, they were struggling. There were some rumors of the school closing. So when I got the opportunity to be an AD and head coach at Southwestern, that's when I went there. So the year before I got there, they had finished last place in the league. Our first year, we made a nice jump, finished 3rd place, got a home conference game in the tournament, which is something they hadn't been able to do for quite some time. And then it was year number 2. That's when we made the jump to a conference championship, which was awesome. But that success was quickly shot down by some failure in the conference tournament. We lost in the first round to a team that we'd beaten by double digits twice in that season. So a lot of great things to experience, and then boom, season's over.
Right.
And so that success that now became failure put the fire was lit even greater to have the national championship season for not only us as a coaching staff, but our players too.
So talk to me a little bit about that mindset, success, failure. We use those words, but how do you think about that season where you had this breakthrough season, you lose early in that tournament, but how do you measure success and failure?
Well, I think success and failure is something that's a very relative term. You know, if you were last place in the league in year 1 and now you double your wins, but you still finish 4th or 5th place in your league, just for lack of a better description, that's probably a success. Whereas if you're some of those blue bloods, your North Carolinas, your Dukes and Kentuckys, relatively speaking, if you don't win a national championship, that would be considered an unsuccessful year, even though you may have won 30 games. So I think there's a lot of things that can go into that. I try to, if we want to just narrow it down to something real simple, and you talk about mindset, is are we better today than we were yesterday? And if we can consider, you're not always going to get better every single day. That's just unrealistic. But if you can be aiming and attempting to do that, I would say most days you're probably going to become a little bit better, even if it's just a little bit, and you start stacking days on top of each other. That's when you can really start to grow and develop those success stories.
That's fantastic. That's a theme that it seems like we just keep hitting on. Is very few people go 0 to 100. It's always a progression. It's always getting a little bit better each day, honing your skills, recognizing the patterns of success or failure, and continuing to kind of navigate through that. And I really like what you said about failure being relative, because it's like you said, it's how we look at it, and sometimes it feels like failure, or it feels like success, but really we just pick ourselves up, and it's not the end of the game. We got another game, another season, whatever's next. So some really good points there. So coming to Mount Marty, you had a group of guys that you took over coaching, and then you brought in a lot of new players. So talk a little bit about how you managed. Well, first, I guess I should set the stage. The record of the team the year prior, I think, was 6-23 to your first season being 20-12. Talk about managing the expectations, the egos of the players, how you're melding that together, if you could.
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, for those in this area that have been fortunate to watch GPAC basketball over the years, it truly is one of the best leagues at the NAIA level across the nation. So folks in this area are really spoiled to get great small college basketball.
Yes, we are.
And the previous team you referenced, they went 6-23. They had a bunch of freshmen and sophomore guys playing heavy minutes, which in the GPAC league is going to be tough to win a lot of basketball games. And those guys were growing and developing. You could see them getting better, and they were on the trajectory to continue to improve. So when I got the opportunity to come here, I felt really confident that those young players were going to continue to grow up and develop. What we needed to do was find the 2 or 3, maybe even a 4th transfer that we can, snap of the fingers isn't a fair term, but where we can make a huge stride in year number 1.
Right.
We were fortunate enough to do that, but bringing those personalities together is difficult, no matter what team you're talking about. First and foremost, the head coach personality is different. Doesn't mean it's right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, but everybody's different. So you now have a new guy that maybe has a different practice plan, a little different demeanor, reacts to things differently. So kids have to adjust to that. And then when you bring in new faces and new bodies, there's certainly going to be some transitions that take place. And fortunately, I thought most of our guys, every day wasn't perfect, but in the grand scheme of things, they all adjusted relatively well, which allowed us to have the season that we did have.
Yeah. When you say that, that's a really good point. Talk about the culture change, or like how you wanted to build the culture around the team, because this was the great opportunity to sort of come in and do that. But what was the culture like this season?
Yeah, so first, I guess when I got here last spring, I got 2 weeks at the end of the school year where I got to be around the returning players, which for me was extremely valuable, just to try to start to develop those relationships. 2 weeks isn't a lot of time, but it's certainly better than no time. So now as we got to talk and communicate over the summer months, we at least had a face and a name and got to joke about some things and work on a few things in the basketball court. So I thought things were established very well. Now it was up to us as returning players, as a new coaching staff and incoming players, to understand that we have to come together and have a program. And culture is extremely, I don't know if overused is fair, but in the world of athletics, you hear a coach get a new job, he's going to talk about the culture, and I thought the culture was already in a solid place here at Mount Marty. Now it was our job to continue to take it to that next level. And a lot of it was just knowing that you can win at Mount Marty. Obviously, I believed you could, or I wouldn't have come here. But until we did it, there's still some question marks. And that mindset of, yep, we're going to get better today, we're going to get better tomorrow, and not worry about wins and losses so much, and hope and trust that they're going to take care of themselves. And for the most part, well, I guess many times it did, and a few times it didn't, unfortunately.
Sure. No, it was a huge difference. So you bring in a few guys, and you use the term physicality before. So when you came in, did you have a plan, or I guess I should rephrase that. Like, talk about the plan and how you executed going from where they were to where you guys ended up.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who the coach is. It could be Coach K from Duke. I'm a North Carolina fan of Carolina Tar Heels.
Sure.
The better players you have, the better coach you're probably going to look like. So I did think, some of the transfers we came in, they there were grown men. I mean, they played 90 to 100 college basketball games, and I've always felt there's no replacement for experience. You know, we can try to create as many situations in practice as possible. We can have scrimmages, exhibitions, live stuff in practice, but if playing the game can't be replaced. So just guys that had played as many games as they had and been really successful at different levels, they were, you know, if we're being just blunt honest, they were a little bit better player than there had been the prior year. So when you have guys that are better players, it should translate to a better team, not foolproof.
Right.
So having some of those guys with talent to be able to come here and make those strides right away, I thought was the biggest piece to the puzzle. On top of now, okay, let's mesh these personalities and develop the culture that we're trying to establish. Right,
and it worked. It worked really well. So talk a little bit about, now we're in this pandemic that's going on, and it kind of hurt your postseason. But what are the postseason plans? What kind of things do you see coming with the team?
Yeah, so the spring's a huge time for a college basketball team, and especially from year one to year two. The first year of everything is the most difficult. Everything's new. I mean, you just think of a simple process of how do we reserve a bus to go to a road game? That's new. How do we do a credit card statement? That's new. Everything. So as years go on, hopefully some of those logistical things are simpler. But we were really looking forward to this spring because we had some guys who I thought made good strides throughout the year. But within a season, you know, we're focused on our team. How do we become the best team? You know, working on team coverages offensively and defensively. The spring is really focused on you as an individual. We feel our best way to become a better team is to have better players. So in that 6-week time frame with our returning guys, that's a time where we get an opportunity to help them grow and develop as players. On top of our job as a coaching staff, college athletics, nature of the beast, is recruiting is about as important as it gets. So if you can recruit other guys to push the players you already have in-house, naturally you should just become a better team based on that. And then when the fall would come, obviously we start to work on some team concepts at that point. So I do feel for our players that were returning because they lost out an opportunity to get that major head start on some of the incoming players. It's obviously not our players' fault. It's not our coaching staff's fault. It just kind of is what it is. But that would have been a great opportunity for those guys to develop.
Right. Anything you're kind of trying to do to navigate through that as best you can? I mean, a lot of people are businesses, everybody's moms are working from home, teaching their kids. Everybody's kind of having to adapt to the term new normal is overused, but how are you kind of adapting through the storm that we've been dealt?
Yeah, try to be as creative as possible. I mean, different players, depending on where they are, have different opportunities to get workouts in, whether they're at a local park. As things have started to open up here a little bit more in the Midwest, you know, so a lot of our kids have had an opportunity to now maybe get in a gym, even if it's with social distancing included. From a coaching staff standpoint, we've probably gotten to do more, I guess, research on some concepts that we may want to implement with our team than we would have otherwise. Because if you just do some real simple math, if you've got 25 guys and you're going to work out with each of them 2 or 3 hours a week, even in groups of 4, you know, that's a big chunk of time. So some of those time frames have come open to us, which has allowed us to, I guess, explore some new opportunities of ways to play both offensively and defensively.
That's really neat. Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at the opportunities that different things deal us because people are at home a lot. Our agency has done a lot more social media. Like everybody's on their phone, everybody's on the computer more so than if they were at work, and so you know we've been able to do a lot more marketing and advertising that way, and we've developed a nice following that I don't know would have necessarily been there had it not been for the circumstances. So I think it's interesting that you talk about those opportunities that you get to look at different tactics and things like that, because that could very well lead to future successes, and it kind of came from the serendipity of overcoming the circumstances.
We sure hope so. I mean, the cards were dealt to us. Now we just have to find a way to play them the best we can.
Sure. So talk a little bit about the sort of the long game or your goal, the goal for the team. Where do you see it going?
Well, unfortunately, we did lose 3 really good players in those guys that all started essentially every game. You know, Chris was a 3rd-team All-American. The 2 other guys were 2nd-team All-League players. So between them, it was like 52, 53 points a game that have now gone out. the door. And those guys were exceptionally talented. Don't get me wrong, if we had the opportunity to bring them back, we would do it in the New York Minute.
Sure.
But at the same time, even great players, there's things that their game brings to the table that isn't always perfect. And I do think our ability to be more balanced next year could be something that could benefit our group. I think we'll have a little bit better ball and body movement. As talented those three guys were, they're great one-on-one offensive players, and there's a huge bonus to that type of player. But the ball does get a little sticky. What I mean by that is they know they can play and get their guy one-on-one, so rather than maybe passing and cutting and creating some of those mismatches in other ways, you give up a little bit of that to let the really talented one-on-one player use their strengths. So we may not be quite as talented from a one-on-one perspective, but I do think we can create opportunities for guys to still make plays in a one-on-one setting, but having to find a different way to get to it, whether that's a ball screen, a dribble handoff, some form of a down screen. Those answers I don't exactly have at this point as we build our group. But I use this term maybe to a fault, but I'm cautiously optimistic with the guys we have coming back and the group that we have signed on paper to come in next year, that we can find a way to make even another step forward within the GPAC. The other thing, the league from what would have been the 18-19 season to the 19-20 year, if you start to look at the teams, Morningside brought almost everybody back. Dakota Wesleyan brought back their All-American point guard. You even look at Briarcliff, they had an honorable mention All-American guard coming back. Just down the line, a lot of really, really good players coming back. So I do think potentially the league is going to still be ultra talented, but everybody's going to have to try to reformulate who they are.
Sure.
So hopefully whoever can kind of find that formula first may have an opportunity to win some games early in the conference season to build that confidence, to keep the mindset and culture going in the right way, to hopefully get to where they want to be at the end of the season.
Yeah. I think you and I are similar in that we're self-critical. Even if something's going well, it's always what could we be doing better? How could we be more effective in this? So if you're looking back, what do you feel like went well during the season? Like, what are you most pleased about coming in season one? And then what thing are you most excited to improve upon going forward?
I think if I could simplify it down to one thing, is I think we reestablished and made it known that you can win at a high level at Mount Marty. We had 6 wins over nationally ranked opponents this season, some at home, some at the road, some on a neutral site. We went and won a conference tournament game against a team that essentially got snubbed from the NAI national tournament. So I thought, we had some hiccups in the road that prevented us from making the national tournament, but we were a national tournament caliber team, and that's a great place to start. So moving forward, now we have to find a way to be consistent and be a team that year in and year out, whether we've lost a fair amount of seniors, whether we have a lot of experience coming back, that other teams in the GPAC and ultimately nationally think, Mount Marty's going to be very well coached. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to have quality players who know how to execute on both ends of the floor. When we go to play them, whether it's in Yankton, in their great atmosphere at Simple Arena, or on our home court, it's going to be a battle. And I think we've set that initial tone. Now we have to find a way to maintain that and make it even better.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Todd, for being with us. Really appreciate you being here.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you having me. Go Lancers, and enjoy this summer evening.
Thank you.